Microsoft Word is an extremely popular tool for writers to use for writing their book, but it can also be a popular tool to format your book as well, even if it's maybe not the best tool to format your book. I've professionally formatted dozens and dozens of books over the years, whether they're my own books or clients' books. They're fiction and nonfiction. They have just regular chapters. They have photos and charts and all these other fancy different things within the books. And the only time I ever use Microsoft Word to format my books when self-publishing was at the very beginning, before I knew there was an easier way. Today I'm going to tell you the 5 reasons why I personally think Microsoft Word is not the best choice for formatting your book. And then I'll also give you an alternative when it comes to book formatting that'll make your life just way easier and make you not want to pull your hair out whenever you sit down to format your book. Hello everyone, my name is Mandi Lynn. I'm an author, book cover designer, and the creator of the Book Launch Planner series, and I make weekly videos on the business of being an author. So if that sounds good to you, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon so you never miss a new upload. Let me start off the video by saying it's not impossible to use Microsoft Word to format your book. There are many people who have used Microsoft Word to format their books and formatted dozens of books. And just because it's possible to use it just doesn't mean that it's the easiest way to do it. Microsoft Word is just not designed as a formatting tool specifically for books. And it's very obvious when you go to format your book in Microsoft Word that this is just not what it's meant for. It can do it, it's just not user-friendly and usually ends in a lot of headaches. Now, if you are someone who wants to learn how to use Microsoft Word for formatting, I actually have an older video on my YouTube channel where I do a tutorial. In the tutorial, I cover specifically a lot of the things that I personally got stuck on all the time. So if there's anything you're trying to troubleshoot, make sure to watch that video. So if you do want to learn how to format with Word, watch that video. It is possible, you just might want to pull your hair out a lot. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, I use Adobe InDesign to format books. I love all Adobe software, and Adobe InDesign is no exception, and I think it makes formatting books or really any sort of text document a total game changer. So as I go through this video saying why I don't like Microsoft Word, I'm going to give you the reason why Microsoft Word doesn't work and how it's different in Adobe InDesign. Now, that doesn't mean that Adobe InDesign is the only option when it comes to formatting your books. There's other softwares out there that have been designed specifically for formatting books. I personally believe that Adobe InDesign is the best software, however, because it has the most customization that you don't get from other book formatting softwares. If you want to learn more on that, I have an entire YouTube video where I talk about why Adobe InDesign is kind of the best software out there for formatting your book, and that video will be linked in the description below. If you're someone who's not familiar with Adobe or Adobe InDesign and you just hear Adobe and you think, oh, that sounds really hard to use, I will say all Adobe softwares have a learning curve, but in my opinion, so does any sort of software. But I do have a course where I teach even someone who has no familiarity with any Adobe software how to take Adobe InDesign and learn it so you can use it to format any book, whether it's a regular chapter book or a book that has more technical stuff like charts and photos and really anything else you want to add into your book. Alright, with all that said, let's talk about why Microsoft Word is frustrating. The number one thing that makes Microsoft Word not user-friendly when it comes to formatting your book is the headers and footers. So the headers and footers of your book. The header is the top of your book where you have stuff like the book's title and your author name on every single page. And then the bottom of your book, which is the footer, we have the page numbers. Now, those are easy enough to add in. The difficult part comes in when you want a start of a new chapter, because when you start a new chapter, typically you don't want to have headers and footers out on that page. So in order to remove a header and footer from one page but keep it throughout the rest of the book, you have to get a little creative in Microsoft Word. And the way you do that is by starting new sections. So you have to start a new section for every chunk of the chapter where you do want the headers and footers, and then the chunk of the chapter where you don't want headers and footers, and then again a new section for where you do want headers and footers. So you're just making a bunch of sections in your Microsoft Word document. So again, it's possible, it's just a little finicky and can be really hard to edit as well. So if pages change and you need to change where the new section starts or ends, you're in for a bit of a session of hair pulling where you're just really frustrated. Now, in Adobe InDesign, on the other hand, actually works a totally different way. So Adobe InDesign has this feature called parent pages, and essentially these are page templates that you create for yourself. So you create a parent page for the chapters of the book where you have your headers and footers with the author name and the book title at the top and the page numbers at the bottom. And then you create another parent page that's for the start of the chapter where it doesn't have those headers and footers, and instead you maybe add really cool chapter art where you'll be able to just make things look a lot fancier and more appealing to the eye. So this way you have your parent pages designed, and then as you're in your document formatting, you click on the page and you assign it a parent page, and that parent page assumes the template, whether it's a template that has headers and footers or a template that has the cool chapter art that you design. And this is all stuff that I explain in detail in the course, but I'm trying to give you guys a super quick overview. But this parent page feature makes it incredibly easy to switch around, especially if all of a sudden a new chapter starts on page 25, but then you change some stuff and now it starts on page 26. It makes it very easy to make that change quickly and easily without wanting to pull your hair out. And it just makes more sense and requires way less steps than when you're in Microsoft Word. And the beauty of the parent pages is if you decide later you want to change the art on the start of the new chapter, all you do is you edit the parent page and it changes it throughout the entire document, because whenever you change the parent page, which is the template, it changes it anywhere else you assigned that parent page in the document. Reason number 2 I'm not a fan of Microsoft Word for formatting your books is that it just exports differently. And what I mean by this is when you're formatting your book in Microsoft Word, it looks one way, and then of course to upload it to a website like KDP, you have to go to File, save as a PDF, because we need it as a PDF. And now when you save it as a PDF and you're looking at the PDF, it looks a little different. Like a line or a photo that might have been on page 9 is now on page 10, which in some cases, not a big deal. In other cases, it's annoying and we don't know why it happens and we have to figure out why or how to fix it. I, to this day, do not understand why Microsoft Word does this, where it looks one way in the software, and then when you export it as a PDF, it looks totally different. Adobe InDesign, on the other hand, is great because how it looks in the software is exactly how it's going to look when you export it, assuming you did everything correctly. There are times where there's a glitch here or there, but that means that you might have done something wrong, or there's a file missing, something like that. Whereas with Microsoft Word, things just look different for no reason and it's hard to fix it. Reason number 3 I'm not a huge fan of Microsoft Word for formatting books is that figuring out drop caps is possible, but not user-friendly. So drop caps is when we have the start of a new chapter, and the very first letter of the first sentence is nice and big and beautiful. And it just makes the book look really professional. Now, you can do drop caps in Microsoft Word. It just takes a little finagling, and also, when you assign the drop cap feature in Microsoft Word, it makes it into like its own little separate text box that you can move around, which I don't know why they do this, because that just means it leaves room for error, in my opinion, where it just could not come out nice. Adobe InDesign has a specific drop cap feature. Basically, it's a box you check off, and then it assigns a drop cap to the beginning of the sentence, and it looks great, and you don't have to play around with it. Reason number 4, I'm not a huge fan of Microsoft Word for formatting books, is that previewing how your book will look when it's printed is weird. And this isn't really an issue until you get used to a software like Adobe InDesign, because the way Adobe InDesigns when you're formatting books is that when you're in there formatting your book, you format it and get to preview it exactly as it's going to look when it's printed. And by that I mean is that at the beginning of the book, you'll have the first page by itself, and then page 2 and then page 3 side by side, page 4 and page 5 side by side. And it sounds like such a simple feature, but it allows you to display the book and format the book exactly how it would look as if you just opened the book and looked at it. Whereas Microsoft Word, as far as I'm aware, doesn't have that feature. So when you're formatting in Microsoft Word, you're usually formatting it one page at a time, where you're looking at one page, or you can zoom out and look at multiple pages, but you don't get that exact page by page preview that looks exactly the way it should when the book is printed. And when the book is printed, the odd pages are always on the right and the even pages are always on the left. Whereas in Microsoft Word, it just puts them, all stacked together, and it doesn't have that nice preview. This is a small detail, but especially when you're formatting more complex books, it's really important to know exactly how the book is going to look, and you can kind of make the mental note to yourself as you're formatting in Word that, right now the page is on the right, but later it's going to be on the left when it's printed. You can make those mental notes, but it's just much easier when it actually looks the way it's supposed to look when it's going to be printed. And reason number 5 I'm not a huge fan of Microsoft Word for formatting books is because it makes it really hard to make changes to the entire document. Now, what kind of changes are we talking about? I'm talking about where we sit down to format our book and all of a sudden it's almost 600 pages. And when you have a 600-page book, can you print a 600-page book? With some print-on-demand companies, no, you can't. So you have to figure out how to get your book to be shorter. And the way you do that is messing around with stuff like paragraph spacing and text size. So when you do that, you have to go in and change those things. Now, in Adobe InDesign, it's really, really easy to make those changes, because just like we have templates for the pages using parent pages, in Adobe InDesign, we use something called paragraph styles, where you highlight all your text and you assign a paragraph style. And a paragraph style is something that you, as an author or formatter, have designed, and you in that paragraph style have decided, like, I want font size 10, I want this much spacing, I want this much for indents. Like, you've assigned this style, and then that way, if later you're like, oh, font size 10 is too small, I want to make it bigger, to make the change, you just edit your paragraph style, and then whatever text has the paragraph style applied throughout the document, it changes that sizing for all of the text. So it's just super, super easy to make changes throughout the entire document, where Microsoft Word is manual changes. So whenever you want to go back and change font size or paragraph spacing, you have to go ahead and highlight everything in Microsoft Word and then make those changes. And you may think like, Mandy, it's just as simple as highlighting the entire document and changing the text size. It's not that simple because you don't want to change the text size for your chapter headers. You only want to change it for the body text. So you have to go chapter by chapter, highlighting every single chapter and changing the font size and the font settings that way. So again, it's possible to format in Microsoft Word, but what I'm trying to show you guys and explain here is that everything is possible to do in Microsoft Word. It's just more of a manual approach to formatting, whereas Adobe InDesign, you do a lot of designing up front, where you design those parent pages and you design those paragraph styles and you design these settings, but then you just apply the settings throughout the rest of the document, and it makes it for a much cleaner look, and it's faster to format as well. It's very easy to be consistent for your formatting using Adobe InDesign because you have these features like parent pages and paragraph styles. You just have these settings that you've made and then you apply the settings to the document. Whereas Microsoft Word, you have to make sure if you change something in one chapter, you have to manually change it for all the other chapters as well if you want something that's going to look consistent and be professional. Anyways, those are the 5 reasons why I'm not a fan of Microsoft Word, and also the 5 ways that Adobe InDesign works way differently and way more efficiently when it comes to formatting your book. So if you're someone who has to do more complex formatting or just a lot of formatting, whether you format books for other people or you just publish a lot of books or you just want the formatting process to be less stressful and more easy when it comes to formatting and self-publishing, then I highly, highly recommend Adobe InDesign. I love the software. And if you don't know how to use the software, again, make sure to check out my course. I take you through the entire process of learning the software and how to use it to format your book in Adobe InDesign. Otherwise, that is it for this week, and I'll see you all next week.